Hello and welcome to European Brick, and today's video is revisiting something I've done before. Now that was the Gemini moon landing I did quite a while ago now, and I now wanted to do this in what hopefully is a more proper way. So in the original video I used a Saturn V as a launch vehicle, which is unrealistic to the original proposal, and what I did here, I believe I misinterpreted somehow, but I believe this should be closer to the original. So right now, we're launching a Saturn C3, and basically, the original proposal for the Saturn series of rockets had more than just a Saturn 1 and Saturn 5, of course had the numbers between 1 and 5, and which does in fact include 3. So the Saturn C3, as you can see, 2 F1 engines on the first stage, which that first stage and the second stage are smaller diameters than those found on the Saturn V, which actually does cause problems, since Bluedog Design Bureau doesn't provide parts that are this scale, so you have to use stock parts, since this translates to about 5 meter diameter in Kerbal Space Program. So yeah, I had to do some kit patching there, and actually some tweak scale the interstage between the two stages. That's only available in 6.25 meter diameter, so I had to scale that. I believe that's the only, actually also the decoupler, but that's the only instance of tweak scale on this rocket, I believe. But yeah, some kit bashing. But yeah, we have those two stages. The second one has 4 J2 engines, then a standard S4 from the Saturn 1, and a Centaur stage on top of that. And all of this launches, well, those top 2 stages serve as the transfer stages. All of this launches the lander as well, and the Gemini capsule launches separately. I believe this is how the original proposal would have went. Now, as you'll see later in this video, I may have gotten this wrong somehow, since it won't end up working. But yeah, you'll see how that happens later on. Anyways, we've just in the first stage now. We were flying through some just unideal weather conditions there. Thanks to volumetric clouds. Still really happy I got this. Was my first launch with the mod enabled. Yeah, while we've just in that fairing, you can see the Centaur stage and the Gemini lunar lander. I've added some additional disk components onto that lander, some science and some life support stuff. Yeah, again, I feel like I got this wrong since the Saturn C3 has like far too much delta V. We're able to reach orbit, essentially just using the first 2 stages. I do have to briefly burn the third stage, which isn't ideal and will actually cause problems later on, but you'll see that later. Anyways, we now have the transfer stages and lander on orbit. We can now launch up the crew, which is just a standard Gemini launch on the Titan II. I wanted to make sure I didn't interrupt the iconic sound of the Titan II engine starting up. Yeah, this is a fairly standard Gemini launch, though actually we do have a different service module since we don't need the retro motors, and there's a few other alterations made, I believe. But yeah, just instead of instead of 2 separate conic sections for the service module, it's now just one combined section, so we have increased space for monopropellant tanks, which still won't be enough for the mission, which you will again see. Anyways, yeah, we are now through our first stage burn, second stage, and I am trying to get a nice close encounter just straight off the launch, so we can minimize the time the cryogenic propellants. The transfer stages are boiling away. You can see we adjusted that cap there on the nose. I'm currently adjusting our altitude so we can precisely alter our trajectory, so we can get that nice close encounter. And second stage burns out, we can deploy the various antennas on the service module, and we can do a final burn to complete our orbit and get our encounter. So once we've completed that maneuver, we can do some more adjustments to our encounter. And yet another maneuver to, again, get that encounter closer. I'm actually really happy with this rendezvous. I was able to do it in one orbit. I normally have to do like several orbits around to get this. I'm not usually precise with rendezvous. It usually takes far longer than it should. It takes multiple orbits. Yeah, again, only one orbit this time. Yeah, now we're approaching the target craft. And this is a standard rendezvous from now. Fairly soon I'll switch over to the other craft and be able to do the, just, again, I realize I'm violating copyright here. Actually, I shouldn't make that joke. But yeah, doing essentially down lazy method, just orientating the two craft to point towards each other. But yeah, we are now able to do that. And now we can dock our spacecraft together. However, there will be a problem that arises because EVA repairs decided that now all of the engines on the S4 stage should suddenly be broken. I think what happened was I didn't fully shut them down. The engines were throttled down. We were still active in the staging list, and I think that caused EVA repairs to cause them to break. Because as you can see, I did an EVA over to inspect, and the engines are not functioning. They need to be repaired, which is not what I expected and hasn't happened before. So to respond to this, I'll actually just disable EVA repairs for this mission. Is it cheating? Probably. I think it's my fault that they didn't work. I should have fully shut them down. But still, I've done missions where I've stayed focused on craft, and I've had that time warp for that long, and the engines didn't all mysteriously break, so I feel like it would have been possible for it to work the way I usually do it. Anyways, another thing that broke was the Delta V readouts, because I don't know why, but the game refused to accept that I had Delta V or thrust weight ratio. So yeah, all the maneuvers were very off. Yeah, I was going to start doing that burn to escape Kerbin, since I probably should have mentioned this far sooner, but yes, as you can see, this is not a stock system. This is the New Horizons flat pack, where Kerbin and the Mun are both moons of the same gas giant. Basically, yeah, again, the maneuvers are way off. And I don't know why, it's this specific craft in particular, and again, just not sure why that's happening. But yeah, I'll end up just using the Kerbal Engineer readouts, just listings for the maneuvers instead. And yeah, it means we'll do this maneuver later on, where, yeah, as you can see, it says we don't have enough Delta V. That is a lie, as I found. But yeah, we just end up splitting that maneuver over multiple burns. Eventually, we do escape from Kerbin. And now we start to make our way towards the Moon. But first we have a mid-course correction to do to get us on the equatorial flyby of the Moon. So we still have a decent amount of Delta V left in the S4 stage, and I'll actually get us most of the way through our orbital insertion burn around the Moon. So again, I feel like I messed up this mission profile somehow. So yeah, if you know how I messed this up, please comment down below. But yeah, we now do our trajectory around Sona, where again, nice passes by the rings. You don't get this in most solar systems, so yeah, again, I really like this planet pack. I just haven't seen much like it before. But now we approach the Moon. There are some graphics glitches I believe caused our planet shine. I might actually just uninstall that. I don't think it's really needed anymore. But yeah, yet again, the maneuver node information is completely off. And so we start our orbital insertion burn. Yeah, partway through this burn, we'll run out of fuel on the S4 stage and activate the Centaur stage. Where I'll mess up my staging and the engines won't ignite, so I'll have to do that manually. So we finish up our orbital insertion burn, but we're still in a fairly eccentric orbit, so we'll do yet another maneuver to finish that off and get a nice circular orbit, from which our lander will be able to descend to the surface and land, where we now complete that burn. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, we still have tons of Delta V left in the Centaur stage, but due to this mission planning, we're going to waste most of that because the Centaur, it's connected directly to the lander, and it's going to be its deorbit stage. So yeah, we're going to lose most of that when it crashes into the surface. But for right now, we can transfer Kerbal over to the lander via EVA. And yeah, this is a very small lander can, just enough space for a seat. We can undock from the Gemini, command module. And fairly soon we can, we'll first move the Gemini away. And then do some corrective maneuvers to avoid it crashing into the capsule when we do our deorbit burn. Yeah, just a small, normal burn to ensure we don't crash into the capsule. And now we begin our deorbit. And so, well, I didn't really have a specific landing site in mind. We're just landing somewhere. See, I've spent a footage up here. This is a fairly standard descent now. Yet again, I don't know why this always happens, but with every single time I land on the moon, it's always I have a lander where it uses another stage for most of its descent. You've seen it in my videos involving the LK, you see it in basically every video that isn't... just, yeah, every video. And just the internal view, I don't really think this is really ideal for a lander can. You can't really see the surface, and you also have basically zero instruments. But yeah, I'll actually, this landing not gonna be my best. You can see I accidentally go too far and you start going up. But yeah, we now fall back down, and yeah, it's not really supposed to do that. But it manages to land right side up anyways, and the engine survives. Great, since that's the only engine. And we're now on the surface. So even less gracefully, we can get off of the lander. And plant a flag, and also do some science. But yeah, now it's time to return to the Gemini command module. And yeah, I'll manage to go the wrong way 2 separate times during this ascent. But yeah, we'll be able to actually insert into orbit fairly actually without many issues, and we'll be able to get a nice close encounter on the first orbit. As you can see, though we're running a bit low on fuel, we can use the RCS to compensate. And we end up with a close encounter very quickly. We don't even need any additional corrective maneuvers. So we now approach the command module. But however, there is a problem. The command module also has a very limited fuel on it. And once we dock and transfer back over, well, we can see that yeah, we're creating a maneuver now to try and escape the Mun, and well, you can see we do have enough fuel to escape the Mun's sphere of influence, but it's not enough to return to Kerbal. I did not test this mission thoroughly enough, and I just assumed I got the mission profile correct, but again, this is definitely not the system this profile was meant for. But yeah, it appears we'll need to do a rescue mission. So, I have some ideas in mind for that already. We have enough life support for the crew to survive until then. If you have any suggestions, please leave those in the comments down below. So, it appears you'll have to wait until possibly next week to see how we'll get these Kerbals back. So, I want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and goodbye.